Hey guys, welcome to the Erie Side Podcast with your hosts, Elena.
Sophia.
And D.
We appreciate you guys listening, and I hope you're ready to get on the Erie Side. Now, before we get into the show, I'd just like to say that we would really appreciate it if you guys could give the podcast a like and follow and make sure that the bell notification is turned on so you'll be notified whenever we drop an episode. And if you're enjoying the show, we'd love to hear your feedback and for you to leave us a review. And if there's any case suggestions or any feedback that you'd like to share, just feel free to leave us a message in the text box below the episode, and share the podcast with family, friends, coworkers, or anyone that you think would enjoy it. And please follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. All right, guys, are we ready to get into today's episode?
Yes.
Okay, so today we're going to be talking about Brian Shaffer. Now, I'm assuming you guys know about this case.
Ugly Tuna Saloona.
The one and only.
I'm familiar with it.
As I like to call it, the Ugly Tuna Saloona disappearance. Brian Shaffer was a vibrant 27-year-old medical student at Ohio State University. On the morning of April 1st, 2006, he went out to celebrate the beginning of spring break with friends at a popular bar in Columbus, Ohio. By the next morning, Brian was gone without a trace. To this day, his disappearance remains one of the most chilling, unsolved mysteries in the United States. So, who was Brian? Brian Randall Shaffer was a charismatic and ambitious man. Born on February 25th, 1979, he grew up in Pickerington, Ohio. Friends and family described Brian as intelligent and full of life and very outgoing. He graduated from high school in 97 and went to Ohio State for his undergraduate degree. After graduating with a degree in microbiology, he went to Ohio State College of Medicine. While attending in his second year, his mother unfortunately died of cancer. Brian tried to pretend that he was handling it well, but it was really hard on him because him and his mother were very close. He met his girlfriend when he was in medical school, Alexis Wagner, who was another medical school student. And despite him being a medical student, his dreams were actually to be in a band playing music similar to Jimmy Buffett and to have his own island where he can drink and play music. So, what changed? Well, on March 31st, 2006, Brian made plans to go bar hopping with his friend William Clint Florence. They started at the Ugly Tuna Saloona, which was a bar in the South Campus Gateway complex located on High Street in Columbus. Security footage captured Brian entering the bar around 9 p.m. About an hour later, Brian made a call to his girlfriend, who was back home in Toledo. Apparently, he sounded fine and was excited to go on his trip, because they were supposed to go on a trip in a few days to Miami, where people speculated Brian was going to propose to Alexis. However, some don't believe this because they weren't together for a long time, and there was no proof that he had a ring or that he was planning on proposing. Also, it's worth pointing out that I've heard from some sources that he asked Alexis to run away with him a few weeks before his disappearance. And then a few days before they left for their trip, he told Alexis that she should leave him and find someone better because he doesn't know how long he'll be suffering for with the whole death of his mother.
Wait, who thought that he was going to propose to his girlfriend?
Alexis did, so his girlfriend, I think family and some friends did as well.
And what made them suspect that?
I don't really know. I just think maybe because this was like a big trip and maybe he had talked about wanting to propose on a trip. I don't know. But I think it was just because like the trip, it was this whole thing planned.
How long had he been dating her at this point?
I honestly don't know. I've heard reports that it was like 5 months.
Okay, so that's still...
He's like in his late 20s, but it's still pretty early on.
Right.
Okay. So throughout the night, Brian and Clint visited several bars in the area, drinking at each one. They were basically just like bar crawling throughout the night. At some point in the night, the pair met up with Clint's friend, Meredith Reed. Meredith offered them a ride back to the Ugly Tuna Saloona and got back there around 1:15 a.m. Once inside the bar, according to Clint, the two had 3 to 4 shots of alcohol, and according to Meredith, she saw Clint and Brian get into an argument but couldn't hear what it was about because of the bar. She also said that around 1:30, she and Clint saw Brian walk towards the corner that was opposite of the entrance, and some speculate that Brian was going over to talk to the band because the band was in that direction. I also read some reports that Clint said that Brian told him he was going to talk to the band. However, when investigators did track down the band confirmed that Brian did not approach them at all and that they had no recollection of talking to him. Then at 1:55 a.m., surveillance footage shows Brian walking outside of the bar to speak with 2 young women, then walking away, seeming to enter the bar. However, at 2 a.m. when the bar closed, Clint and Meredith left after spending time looking for Brian. They waited for him for a bit and tried calling him, but they couldn't find him. They also searched like the whole bar. I mean, it was a square, so it wasn't a lot to search. And they did look in the bathrooms, but they couldn't find him. So they just assumed that he had gone home or left. What is so chilling about this case is after Brian is seen walking away from the girls, he is never seen again. He wasn't captured on the exit in the bar, which had cameras, and there was also a camera facing the escalator that led to the street. So basically, there was one exit in the bar. So if he would have gone back into the bar and left, there was a camera facing that exit, and there was also a camera facing the escalator that led down to the street. So this bar isn't your typical bar. It's actually like inside of another building. So think of kind of like a mall kind of idea. We'd go in, there was an escalator up, and then to the right was the Ugly Tuna Saloona. So there was a camera facing the escalators. Basically, he is seen entering, but he's never seen exiting.
Is it confirmed that he actually went back into the Ugly Tuna Saloona?
No. And that's what's so, I think, chilling and so eerie about this case is that from what I read, it looks like he should be going into the bar based on the camera. He's leaning towards the right, but he's never seen again.
It's so interesting because in other true crime podcasts, people always say it as if though it's a confirmation that he went into the bar and we don't know how he got out.
No, that's why I wanted to do this case, is because I also was shocked by that too when I was researching, because I thought the same thing, is that it looked like, from what I read, that he walked like directly into the bar. But from what I've seen, it seems like he walked in, but I don't think it's like 100% proven. Like it looked like he was walking in that area, and maybe he did walk in, but he could have just quickly like left and gone. And I'll explain like where he could have gone, but most likely it looked like he was heading in that direction, but it's not confirmed.
So there's no camera showing who comes into the Ugly Tuna Saloona.
No, I've also saw reports that there was one camera by the entrance of the Ugly Tuna Saloona that moved, that like panned, and I'll get into that later, but that also did not show any footage of him. But it was one that moved, it rotated. Okay, so now we're going to get into the investigation. When did people start to realize that he was missing? Because his girlfriend was out of town and Clint and Meredith had left and spent the night at Clint's place. Well, it actually happened pretty soon when Brian's girlfriend Alexis became concerned when he failed to answer her calls. Now, remember, he went out on March 31st, and that was on a Friday, and his flight to Miami is on Monday. So when he missed his flight, that's when Alexis and Brian's father, Randy, knew something was wrong and reported him missing. Police began their investigation by reviewing the Ugly Tuna Saloona's security footage. The absence of any footage showing Brian leaving the bar led to a perplexing question. How did Brian Shaffer leave the Ugly Tuna Saloona? In the direction Brian went, there's 2 ways he could have gone. He went back into the bar, or somehow he exited through the service exit, but it did lead to a construction site that had doors that led to the street. it is possible that Brian wanted to disappear and that this was his intention. Maybe he changed his clothes and put on a hat. However, there are some holes to this theory. One being, why would he want to disappear? I know his mother died 3 weeks before and it was hard on him, but he just finished finals, was about to go on a nice trip to Miami and possibly propose to his girlfriend. I also read somewhere that it's possible that this trip was like a gift from his mother before she passed. So I have a hard time thinking if that's true that he would do that, given how close he was with his mother. But however, given what he might have said to Alexis and the death of his mother, it is possible that he left on his own. But Lori Davis, who was an advocate for people who go missing and worked with Brian's family to find him, said that a detective who has studied that video said that he's 100% sure everyone is accounted for, meaning everyone who he saw went into the bar, he also saw coming out. So I feel if there was a guy who had random clothes on that they didn't see enter before, that also kind of resembled Brian, they would have noticed. And they did, because I read that there was like this one guy that they saw leave with an orange sweatshirt or sweater or something, and they didn't see him come in, but they tracked him down and he said, oh yeah, like I walked in, but I was wearing a different clothes and then I got cold and I put my sweatshirt on and I left. And so they were able to confirm that. So they looked, they didn't see anyone that resembled Brian that they didn't see entering that could have been him. Now, if at any point he went back into the bar, even though that he had a small window since it did close at 2 a.m., and exited from the bar, like the exit that's in the bar, he would have been seen on the camera. And I also read some reports that there was a security guard that was there that didn't see him. So he couldn't have exited the bar and most likely didn't go down the escalators and exit the way he came in. So he couldn't have exited the bar and most likely didn't go down the escalators and exit the way he came in. So the only real option is that he left through the service exit. There was a camera in the Ugly Tuna Saloona that panned and did show the service door, but apparently it didn't show Brian, according to police. The footage isn't public, so I can't confirm, but from what all the police have said is that there is no footage with Brian anywhere. So the detective in charge of the case, Sergeant Hurst, said in an interview pretty recently that the footage looked like the camera was about to pan, but was shifted manually by a security guard. Now, I don't think he's saying like it was intentionally shifted, but it was basically like how he described the footage was like it was panning and then it like stopped, or it was panning and it stopped and went over. So the footage, from what I've heard, the camera didn't show the service exit.
So was it for sure tampered with?
I don't know. I have no idea. I think it's unlikely that a security guard would do that.
If they're trying to do something to Brian and have it off camera, hypothetically.
Maybe, but I doubt it was like security guards, though.
Why is it they don't believe that he just disappeared? Because who asks his girlfriend a few days before he disappears, let's just disappear?
I'll get into a little bit why they don't think that. And also just that's just what the police are saying, that's their theory. I do think it's interesting, but I find it hard that he would disappear off the face of the earth and like never get any sort of reports or anything like that. I guess it's possible as people have done that, but that's just not the direction that the police have taken with this case.
But it does sound like that is something he may have done and just wanted to completely disappear.
True, but I think a drunken night is probably like the worst time to disappear for yourself. There's no evidence that his like credit cards or his accounts have ever been touched. We'll get into his phone in a bit. I feel like why there was no sign that he had packed anything, and he most likely was intoxicated. So I feel like if he was going to disappear, choosing that night is not.
Most times, like those sorts of decisions are actually very impulsive.
That's true. It could have been an impulse decision, but from what Alexis said on the phone, he sounded very excited to go on the trip, and there was no sign that he was leaving.
Right, but a lot of times people don't even notice right before their loved ones commit suicide or hurt themselves or whatever. When we know that suicide a lot of times is very much a very impulsive decision, it could have been a very spur of the moment decision he made in that bar.
True, but there also wasn't any footage of him anywhere around the area, and I'll go into why. Basically, there's a lot of cameras in this town. It's the highest camera populated area in Ohio. There's so many security cameras, and if he had left the construction site, he would have had to get most likely in a car because all the cameras around the area where he could have left after he left the exit didn't catch him. So it's not like he walked away.
If he was able to escape the Ugly Tuna Saloona cameras, who's to say he couldn't have, not even intentionally, but escaped other cameras as well?
I guess it's possible, but I don't know. It's just the direction that the police have taken with this. It's possible, of course. When someone disappears and there's not a body, that's definitely always a big possibility. But as of right now, the police are leaning more towards foul play. Now, if he went into the hallway there, which if you go out up the escalators to the right, it's Ugly Tuna Saloona. If you go straight, there's a little hallway where there's 2 doors. Sources just talk about the surface exit, but I've also found sources that there was another door to the right. I don't know where it was, on what side, but I know that there was another door. Now, one led to the construction site, which wasn't this huge outdoor construction site that I think a lot of people make it out to seem. It was more of a big room / basement that was under construction. I feel like when I listened to this case, and it seems like people talk about this as this huge construction site with all this lumber and metal and all these things all around. It really wasn't. It was just a room or a basement that was under construction. And the other door led to other buildings, but if he had gone there, he would have been seen leaving the entrance of those buildings on the security cameras that they had. So even if he had gone into that one and exited through one of those buildings, he would have been seen on those cameras, and he wasn't. Now, the inside of the construction site, it definitely would have been difficult for him to walk around, given that he was probably still intoxicated from the night. Apparently, it was under so much construction that a police sergeant said it would be difficult for anyone to walk sober, let alone drunk. There was also this huge hole in the room, which is 6 by 6 feet and 4 feet deep. It's possible that Brian could have fallen in, but it wouldn't have been so deep that he wouldn't have been found the next day had he hit his head and couldn't get out, if he was dead. Police, they would have found him. And they did search the whole room, and they brought dogs in to see if they could smell him there, but there was no luck.
Was this construction being done outside or inside?
No, it was inside.
Okay, that's another thing that I always assumed, was that it was outside.
Yeah, and I did too. And that's why I was really shocked doing that research, is that it's described as being heavily under construction, because it was. I think some people just instantly think it was this huge construction site, and it wasn't. It was a basement that was under construction.
And there was a 4-foot hole in this construction.
Yeah, it was.
room?
It was 6 by 6, and it was 4 feet deep. And they checked there.
They checked the hole.
Yeah, there was nothing.
In other podcasts I had listened to, I had imagined it was just very deep holes, and they never really checked. And I just gotten the impression that this construction site was actually a room now that I'm finding out could have been a viable option, but now I'm thinking maybe it's not.
No, they really did a thorough search, and they brought dogs, and there was no sign that the dogs were picking up any sign of a dead body, but I know there was nothing that was signaling a body. I also think I read somewhere that they undid some fresh concrete just to make sure. So they did a thorough search there, and there was no sign that he was there.
Well, now I'm thinking he did walk away.
That's what a lot of people are saying. So it most likely seems like that.
Question is, did he walk away and an accident happened, or he found harm, or did he choose to walk away and remove himself from society permanently?
I think that's $1 million question. I will provide a quote that was by the lead detective on the case, and he said, quote, "The basic indication right now is somehow he got down into the construction area and most likely got exited out of there. But again, we don't have anything that's on video to support that. It's just speculation at this time." end quote. So it seems like even from the detectives that most likely he went into the construction site and somehow was able to get out.
Is there an exit from the construction site then?
That leads to the outside. And from what I read, there wasn't a camera on that exit, but cameras around the area that would have seen him had he continued walking.
Well, dogs didn't even pick up his scent. So why do they think that he walked in there, fell, maybe, and came out? If they didn't pick up any scent.
I'm actually not sure if the dogs picked up his scent in the Ugly Tuna Saloona or on the escalator, but didn't pick him up in the construction site. I don't even know if the dogs ever picked up his scent in that building. I just know that there was nothing that signaled that he was there, like his body was there, that he was passed out somewhere or anything like that. They also immediately looked to like dumpsters. They were looking all the dumpsters all around, all alleyways, everywhere. So if his body was in the immediate area, he would have been found. Now, I guess it's possible maybe his body was dumped in a dumpster and then taken, but even the police said that they like tracked down the landfill where it would have gone, and they didn't find his body there either. A few years after Brian's disappearance, unfortunately, his father, Randy, passed away while a branch unexpectedly hit him.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and killed him. So unfortunately, the mother, father, and Brian are all gone or missing, which only left the younger brother because there was a family of 4.
That's so tragic for him.
Yeah, that is really
He's
sad.
all alone now.
So there's also people talk about his phone pinging afterwards, because I guess his family and his friends were like just calling him afterwards. I know I saw reports that Alexis was like calling him every day or at least every night in hopes that he would pick up and then to hear his phone. Apparently there was like one time where the phone, I guess, pinged. I guess it rang like 3 times or something like that, and then it went to voicemail. But the phone company or whatever,
Phone provider?
someone was like, actually, it's very possible that that was just like a glitch in the system. And sometimes like with the towers, the explanation was complex, but basically like somehow with the way the pings work, that it can be just a glitch. And then I think it happened again later on, but again, people are talking about it being just like a glitch.
Was his phone turned off?
Yes, it was like instantly, like right away, his phone was turned off.
That looks more like someone who wants to disappear.
Or, and of course this happens, not as likely, someone kidnaps him, immediately takes his phone and turns it off.
I guess it's possible that they just broke it right away and the pings were just an accident.
His phone died. I mean, he's been out. Obviously, I think a lot of people's phones tend to die later in the day. And at this point, he's out late, he's drinking. It's pretty believable to think that it could have just died as well.
But I guess it was like, I think 5 months later when his girlfriend called that it like rang a few times.
So sad. Still calling. We definitely missed him for a while.
And I guess it was pinged to a cell tower in Hillard. The phone provider was like, these rings just may have been like a glitch, and it wasn't anything concrete as like evidence that the phone was turned on or anything like that. That basically leaves us only with theories. So what are theories? Obviously, some of the classic theories are that he ran away, or there's foul play inside the bar, outside of the bar. There's intentional, like, planned foul play, like someone would, like, plan this. There's the option that it was an unplanned, opportunistic foul play. There's, of course, that he disappeared intentionally. And then there's also an option that he fell and he got injured somewhere and maybe fell into water. There was, like, one near, like, body of water that the police searched and didn't find anything. We'll get into the idea of, did he run away? Okay, so the first option is obviously the voluntary disappearance, but there are some things that kind of align with this and other ones that say maybe that he didn't do. There are the signs, what he said to Alexis beforehand, if that's true. There are other reasons that may not be true. There's been not a lot of sightings of him Since then, there was one in Mexico, but that was proven to not be him. There's no evidence that he took out any money from his bank or had any way of being able to leave. His phone, for the most part, most likely seems like it hasn't been turned on since he left. He has not tried to contact his family, and neither has he contacted after his father had passed. He just seems like such a family man that I feel like he wouldn't maybe go for so long. I mean, it is possible, but he does have some pretty distinctive like tattoos that I would think make it a little bit easier to identify him. I guess it's possible he could have completely changed his appearance and gotten into a car and drove it off, and maybe he had some friend or someone that was planning on picking him up. I don't know.
Does this theory also include that he hurt himself or took his life that night?
I guess that would be like a subsection, is like there is like that suicide or accident theory as well, where he maybe fell somewhere and got hurt. There was pretty thorough investigation though, and they didn't see any evidence of that. If he'd committed suicide, like they searched the nearby area. If he did it anywhere nearby, I feel like they would have found his body.
Definitely, this is such a strange story for so many reasons. Number one is we just lose him on the camera. We don't even know where he went. We can't even find him on the cameras. Number two, I mean, there's been no sightings of him. And I think at this point we'd have some sort of clues if he was still alive, living out there. Something. I mean, this is such a huge case in the true crime world. I think he would have been spotted, or we'd at least have more sightings of him than we currently do.
Yeah.
Number three is if he did take his own life, then where the heck is his body? It's so weird.
That's what's so weird too, is like if this was like an opportunistic kill, right? So say he was walking out and I don't know, maybe he saw like a crime go down or a drug transaction. So he saw something he shouldn't have seen. I doubt the person, if it was just opportunistic, would kill them and take the body so far. Most likely they would just leave it there, run away. If it was like a robbery gone wrong and the person killed Brian, they probably would have just ran away. And again, his body wasn't found in any dumpsters.
I'm now starting to think that it's very possible he could have been a victim of foul play.
I would agree with that.
What bothers me most about the theory that he left of his own accord is where is his body at that point? Because if he did want to hurt himself, why can't we find out where he is?
I mean, unless he left on his own and chose to not commit suicide or just live an alternate life somewhere else.
But I think because this case is so well known, I think there'd have been some sort of sightings of him.
Yeah.
I had heard that the construction site was in such a way that he could have fallen in and they could have cemented it because they came back to work on Monday and they didn't start looking for him till much later.
What I've heard from the detective, he is 100% sure that he is not in that building. But I think that would be very unlikely because a lot of construction workers commenting on this, and they're like, when there's something out of place in our construction site, we notice instantly. So they were like, I find it hard to believe that someone could unintentionally cement over a 6'2" guy.
But if you're not paying attention, if you're just going to your routine day over day, I don't know, there's something about this in particular that makes me think maybe they missed something at the construction site.
From what it seems like the detective was saying, and again, even if he was cemented over, at some point he would start to rot and the dogs would still be able to smell his body. I guess in the end, it depends if the construction did use cement on Monday or not. I don't know. I don't know what they were doing the next day and what their construction schedule looked like on Monday. So it's possible, but we don't even know if cement was used. And then that leaves us with the option of if it was a robbery gone wrong or something like that. I think the body would have been found had it been left there. It is possible that maybe he saw something and they took him out and then they took his body and removed him and put him so far out that no one's even looking for him where he is. Another option with foul play is that something happened inside of the bar, which I don't think anything happened to him inside. It seems very unlikely, and there's really no evidence to suggest that. If something happened in the bar, then it would need to be covered up, You have to have been hidden from the cameras and the security that was there, then disposed of the body very far away. But because the police searched the surrounding area and they looked in the dumpsters and the nearest body of water in case he fell in, there's really nothing that makes me think that he was inside. And the cameras around the area that might have picked up a body-shaped bag, there was nothing that suggested that, and nothing that suggested that he was killed inside. So that leaves us with most likely foul play. I hear a lot of people speculate that he was either going for a meetup, so he was intentionally going to meet up with someone in a car and then things went bad, or he just happened to see someone and get a ride from a stranger and then things went bad after that. Obviously, there's no concrete evidence to support that he was going to meet up with someone. I don't think they have their phone, so there's nowhere to confirm or deny that. But how do you guys feel about that theory?
Did they look at his phone to see if he was meeting up with anyone?
They don't have his phone. So that was one of the things, is they don't have it.
You can download phones. What year is this?
2006. So I think it was a cell phone. I don't think it was like an iPhone.
Oh, I see.
I also think it's interesting that he disappeared right after talking to those two ladies.
I will say those two girls were tracked down and talked to. And even the father, Brian's father, like I saw talk to those girls and they're like, those girls didn't have anything to do with it.
But was he flirting with them?
That is the big question, is what was he doing with two young girls outside of a bar at around 1:50 a.m. while he does have a girlfriend at home? I saw a report that he could have been not like a player, but like that Clint.
Flirtatious. Some people have flirtatious personality.
Maybe he was just talking to them, or because a lot of times when you're drunk, sometimes you'll just socialize with whoever.
But that's the thing. He's drunk. He's maybe going to do something he wouldn't normally do.
Is it official that he has drank a lot, like he is tipsy if not drunk?
I don't know how drunk he was at the time, but he did drink a lot that night. They were like multiple shots at each bar. They had a good amount of drinks. So he was 6'2". He had been out for a while, so maybe he'd started to sober up. But then again, like Clint said, when they went back to Ugly Tuna Saloona, that they had 3 or 4 more shots.
Maybe he wanted to go find a woman that night, and so he went off in search of that. Or maybe he fell through a hole somewhere. I don't know, in the city, and nobody's found him.
They did check under the sewers, though.
They did.
That's another thing. They got permission to do that. And they were thorough, I will say.
Now, if I understand, he's near a body of water.
Kind of. There's only one body of water that was even like remotely close, and they searched that.
Okay, so does that have anything to do with the smiley face?
Mm-mm. People have completely debunked Brian Shaffer being related to the smiley face. I guess people always speculate it, but there's no evidence to suggest that. There was no smiley face that was ever found near there. There was no other disappearances.
That was
in
a
that
river.
Either.
There was a river, right? It was like a moving body of water.
I don't know if it was like a river. I think it might have just been like a little pond or lake or something.
I'm asking because if it's a river, I would be able to believe that maybe he fell in there and they just never found him. But if it's a pond or a small body of water that's not moving, it's harder for me to believe that.
Because it's near a college town. The way I interpreted it, it didn't seem like it was a huge body of water, but if it was a lake, maybe it was possible he could have gotten washed out. There's nowhere for him to go. People tend to lean more towards the idea that he got out and was picked up and somehow either he left on his own or something happened after he got picked up. I lean more towards that.
I don't know. This is a little confusing, but I always thought maybe he had fallen in the construction from the other times I've heard the story. If he decided to disappear on his own and was prepared, then they don't have to find anything. But
Yeah.
I'm not sure he was prepared. He was a little drunk, so that doesn't make you prepared. And impulsive, if he does it impulsively, I don't think he'd be able to do it. He'd need money and other stuff.
Right. He'd have to get money at some point.
It's just that his phone was turned off because it could have died. But makes me think either he or somebody else wanted to make sure his location could not be tracked.
I don't know if his location could be tracked. I think what happened is I don't think he wanted to talk with Clint and get bugged by Clint because there was reports that they had an argument. People have pointed fingers at Clint. I don't necessarily know if there's any signs that really say that Clint had anything to do with it. I think they were just two drunk guys who got in an argument.
It's hard for me to think he's involved when the cameras, Clint's still in the bar and Brian has left.
Meredith, I know for sure, has taken a lie detector test and talked and been open. Clint is the only one that lawyered up and did not get a lie detector test. However, I don't think that's any sign of guilt because people are already starting pointing fingers at him, and then he got a lawyer, which is just smart at that point.
I know some people don't like how he's responded to things, but personally, I would say you should do what he did, which is get a lawyer and not take the polygraph because they're not even reliable. I can't fault him at all for doing that.
He's the only one that got a lawyer, and any lawyer will tell you, most likely, probably just don't take the polygraph. That is it for our case on Brian Shaffer. How do we feel?
Interesting.
Definitely want to know what happened, and there has to be another development. And just, it's so bizarre. It's so mysterious. It just leaves you wondering what the heck happened.
If we're ever going to solve this case, there will have to be some sort of new evidence and new development in order to move forward.
If they find his body, then they have an idea, but at least they know what's happened to him.
The crazy thing is if somebody took him, he could still be held captive somewhere.
True. But also, who would willingly take an adult male?
It's not as common, right? Most predators seem to prefer holding girls or women captive, but I do think it's definitely...
It's not impossible.
It's not impossible, but I don't think it's probable.
I want to thank you for listening to us this week. We love our listeners, and it's because of you guys that we're able to do this podcast. Your help and your engagement really helps us grow, and if you enjoy this episode, please send it to a friend or family member to listen. Until next time, guys, make sure you stay on the area side. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Be safe.